Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and today we're doing an update on my Pan Those Eyeshadows series. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this project, it is a project that was created by Alexy. As always, I will have her information linked in the description box below. She's a phenomenal project panner. She's also just a phenomenal content creator. She puts together some of the most interesting and gorgeous eyeshadow looks I have ever seen. She is amazing. Please check her out. You will not be disappointed. But she created this project a few years ago to just randomly select eyeshadows from her collection to work on hitting pan at. And so it really took off like wildfire last year, and I started doing it as well as a ton of other people, and I've continued it on this year as well as have a ton of other people. So if you haven't seen these types of videos before and you find that you like them, there are a bunch for you to catch up on. So without further ado, let's start talking about the eyeshadows that I have been working on over the past month or a few months, depending on the situation. So as always, I keep tally marks to remember how many times I've used each shadow. And yeah, so let's just go ahead and hop into it. I do have pan in one eyeshadow, which if you saw my update last month, you know which shade it is. And it is finally the cream shade here in my Salvaje palette. I don't know if you can see it real well because the reflection from my window is pretty substantial, but it's there, it's small. I feel like you can kind of see it glinting in there. I actually was super duper surprised. I felt like the pan was literally right there and that I was going to hit it just the very next day after I filmed that update. But no, it actually took a further 14 uses before I finally hit pan on that sucker. So yes, finally hit pan on that guy. Very, very excited. So that will be rolling out, and I will be at the end of the video rolling something else in its place. So moving on to the other shadow that will be making its way out of this project, and that comes from my Lorac Mega Pro 4. I have struggled with this shadow. It is this one right here in Light Sage. I don't like it. It's ugly. I used it once after that update. I just don't like it, and I'm going to go ahead and roll it out. I do have a couple of vetoes to work with. I mean, there is a dip going on in there, but I just don't want to force myself to use up a shadow that I don't enjoy. I've had a lot of people recommend that I franken it, and I probably will. I just haven't figured out what shade to franken it with. But for the moment, I am going to go ahead and just roll it out of the project, bring something else in that hopefully I will get more usage out of, since that guy isn't getting really any. So those are the two that are going to be leaving this project. So let's talk about the ones that I am still working on. So the oldest one now comes from my Tarte Origami palette. This is a holiday palette that came out a couple of years ago. I just call it the Origami palette because of the way that it folds apart. I just think is really cool, but it reminds me of origami. So this guy right here in the shade Starry. It barely looks roughed up, to be honest with you. I finally got the word tart gone. I mean, at certain angles, you can actually still kind of see it. But not really any sort of dip going on there. It's this one right here where my finger is in the corner. I've used it a lot. I used it 8 times over the past month. I used it 9 times before that and 8 times before that. This is just a very firmly pressed eyeshadow formula, and so I have a feeling it's going to be sticking around for quite a while. I do have a stipulation in my rules that say that if I've used it, I think I said 45 times, maybe it was 30, I'll have to go back and check, and I still haven't hit pan, then I have the ability to go ahead and roll it out. Whether it's 30 or 45, it doesn't matter. I think I will end up hitting either one of those numbers and then rolling it out before I hit pan, just because it's just so firmly pressed in there and I don't want to spend the entirety of the year working on one shadow. But I do enjoy the shadow. I think it's very pretty. It works very well. I just don't see pan in my future very soon on it. The next shade comes from my ABH Sultry palette. I rolled this in last time. It is the shade Fresh, which is right here on the end. It is just a cream colored matte, there we go, cream colored matte shadow. I haven't used it much just because I expected to hit pan on the ColourPop shadow long before I did. So I've only used it a total of 6 times since it was rolled into this project, but I have no concerns over whether or not I'm going to hit pan on that bad boy. ABH shadows are not super firmly pressed, and it's a matte cream color that I use to just set down my eyeshadow base, so I have a feeling that that one is going to be very easy to hit pan on, depending on how often I do my makeup. I think that's going to be the big sort of stipulation on not just my project, but most people's projects right now, is just how often am I going to do my makeup? That will dictate how quickly I'm able to roll through things. So there is that. I think the one that I've made the most amount of progress in is this guy right here. This is my NYX Love in Paris palette, and I believe it was the last update I rolled this in as well. And I rolled in this shadow right here on the end, this kind of, it's not a shimmer in the sense that we think of shimmers right now. I would say it's more of a satin, to be honest with you. I've been using it not just on my lid, but also in my crease. I've been doing a lot of one shadow looks recently just because they're super easy. This is one that I've been doing that a bunch with. Just really blown out in the crease, pack it on my lid, it's perfect. I've been using that starry shade in the same way also, but there is a pretty good dip going in this guy. So I have a feeling that if I continue on the same way that I have this month, that I will probably have pan in it by next month. I've used it a total of 11 times since I rolled it into this project. So I feel like that is really, really good progress on that shade there. So with that being said, now comes the fun part. Now is when we get to roll for 2 new palettes. So let me go ahead and get my Pretty Random app up, because as usual, not prepared. I also don't have my spreadsheet up because as usual, not prepared. That's the internet, not my files. Hey, come back. All right, so into the Pretty Random app, we are going to put in all of my variables. So with headers and everything, it actually starts on line 2 and goes down to, I have way too many eyeshadows. At the moment, 1857. However, spoiler alert, I do have some new palettes that need to be added. Alright, so let's go ahead. Alright, so let's go ahead and randomize. Hey. 625. Write that down. And then let's randomize again. 1095. All right. I am going to hop off camera, find those palettes, come back and we'll take a look at the color story that we'll be working on this month. All right, so we are back, and the 2 new shades come from 2 new palettes, which is exciting. Well, not new, but new to these projects. So 1095, right? Yes, 1095 comes to us from my Tartelette Toasted palette. It is, let's see if I can do this without blinding you too badly. It is this shade right here called Flame, which is a beautiful metallic red shade. And then 625 comes to us from my Dominique Cosmetics Latte palette, and it is this shade right here called Creme Brulee. So we've got 2 metallic shades that are joining us, and so this is what our new color story looks like. It's actually really quite cohesive in a way. It's definitely more fall inspired rather than spring, but that is okay. So these are the 2 colors that are staying in the project. This is from the NYX palette. This is from the Tarte palette. This is Starry. This is Flame from the Tartelette Toasted palette. And then this here on the end, this really pretty metallic gold color, is from the Latte palette. So very exciting. I think all of these will work really, really nicely together, which is always helpful in projects like these, and I'm very excited to be working on them. I didn't, of course, swatch the shade from the Sultry palette because, let's be honest, you don't need to see what a matte cream colored shade looks like, and you probably wouldn't be able to see it on my skin anyway. So I would say, as far as goals go, hitting pan in this pink shade I feel like is inevitable, as long as I'm actually doing my makeup. And then I would say everything else, pretty fair game. I think that I'll have a pretty sizable dip going in Fresh from the Sultry palette. Again, it's a shade that I can use no matter what kind of eyeshadow look I'm going for that day. And then I should be able to make some pretty steady progress in the other 2 shades that we rolled in today. So I'm very excited about kind of the changes that we are making, and I feel really good about my decisions. So if you are doing this project, let me know how it's going. I feel like this project is just so much fun. It keeps everything nice and fresh, which I definitely appreciate, and really is helping me to move through some of my eyeshadow palettes that have gotten very little use. As much as I absolutely love this palette, I haven't used it in ages. I really enjoy this palette, but I've barely used it since I purchased it. So it is really nice to be getting some additional use out of these neglected products in my collection. So definitely thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope that you and everyone that you care for is happy and healthy and doing well. I hope that you are having an amazing day, and I will see you next time.